They left me behind on purpose. At least that's what it felt like the moment I walked back outside and saw the empty driveway. I stood there, holding a cold bottle of water in one hand and my phone in the other, blinking at the spot where the SUV had been just minutes before. My dad's SUV, the one I had loaned to them. Eric, my husband, and his family, so they could have more space for the trip. They had all smiled, thanked me, and packed it full of snacks and pillows and lake gear. They knew how much it meant to me. Or maybe they didn't care. Before we dive deeper into this chaotic mess, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more wildlife stories you won't believe. Trust me, this one only gets messier. I'm not usually the kind of person people forget. I show up on time. I make the reservations. I pack extra sunscreen in case someone forgets. And I double-check things like departure times and road snacks. I'm the planner. That's who I've always been. Organized, dependable. But somehow, that morning, they forgot me. Or they said they did. The plan had been clear. We were all meeting at my house. Eric, his parents, his sister Amanda, and her boyfriend Dan, because it was easiest. The SUV could fit more people and bags. Eric was driving it, since I still got too emotional driving it myself. My dad had passed away 2 years ago, and that car was the last thing he left me. He used to take me to the lake when I was little. Letting Eric take it was hard. Letting his family ride in it harder. But I did it, because family comes first, right? I thought we'd all drive together in 2 cars, caravan style. That's how it had always been. That morning, I'd woken up early, helped Amanda with the coolers, handed Eric the spare key, and even took a group photo before they loaded up. I remember saying, "Let me just grab my charger from inside," and Eric nodding, "We'll wait here." Except they didn't. I was gone maybe 3 minutes. I came back out, phone charger in hand, and they were gone. No note, no honk, just silence. My street was quiet, not even a car passing by. My heart started to pound in my chest like I just sprinted a mile. I texted Eric, "Did you leave already?" No response. I tried calling him, straight to voicemail. I called Amanda. No answer. I checked the group chat we'd used for planning. The last message was from Amanda an hour ago. Almost there. Nothing after that. I paced the porch, thinking maybe they had gone to get gas. Maybe someone had to pee. Maybe they just needed coffee. But deep down, I knew. They weren't coming back. I sat on the front step, disbelief turning into something hotter, something sharper, anger, humiliation, confusion. I opened my phone again and checked location sharing. Eric's pin was moving. On the highway, heading west, out of the city. They were halfway to the lake house, without me. I waited another hour. Maybe they'd call. Maybe they'd realize the mistake and come back. But no call came. Eventually, Amanda texted, just 5 words. "Didn't you say you'd drive?" I stared at the screen, my fingers trembling. I never said that. I never even hinted at it. I replied, "No, I said I'd be right back." She didn't respond. And that was the moment it hit me. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a miscommunication. This was something else, a choice. Maybe not by everyone in that car, but by someone, maybe more than one. Someone didn't want me there, and no one else cared enough to stop it. I felt stupid for being surprised. It wasn't the first time I'd been left out, not really. There were always small things, inside jokes I wasn't part of, conversations that went quiet when I entered the room. Eric always told me I was imagining it. "They're just awkward," he'd say. "They don't mean anything by it." But this meant something. They left. And they took my dad's SUV with them like it was just a vehicle. Like it didn't hold memories or grief or love. Like it didn't belong to me. I went inside, locked the door, and sat down on the couch, numb. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in the house. The silence was suffocating, and that's when something inside me cracked. Not with sadness, but with clarity. They forgot me, or pretended to. Either way, I would make sure they remembered what that SUV actually was, and who it belonged to. The first thing I did after sitting on that couch was call Eric again, still straight to voicemail. His phone might have died, sure, but what about the others? Amanda, Dan, his mom, Karen, his dad, George? I dialed Karen's number next, pressing the phone to my ear like a lifeline. It rang once, twice, 3 times, then voicemail. Again. The chill creeping down my spine wasn't from the air conditioner. I tried Amanda. Still nothing. Finally, after what felt like forever, a text popped up. Amanda again. "Didn't you say you were coming later?" I stared at those words for a long time. My thumb hovered above the keyboard. My chest tightened. No, I hadn't said that, not even close. And yet her tone was so casual, as if I had spontaneously changed my plans and forgot to mention it, as if it was all perfectly reasonable. No, I typed. I said I was getting my charger. You all left without me. The little bubble showed she was typing, then it vanished. I waited. 5 minutes, 10, nothing. No reply, no call, no apology. Just that one message, shifting the blame to me, like I'd misunderstood, like I was the problem. Gaslighting at its finest. I tossed my phone on the coffee table and sat there in silence, my thoughts racing. It didn't feel like a mistake. I'd felt orchestrated, like someone had seen a chance to leave me out and taken it, and no one stopped them. It wasn't the first time I'd been made to feel like I didn't belong. I remembered the last Christmas, when Karen forgot to get me a gift, even though she handed out monogrammed robes to everyone else. Or Amanda's engagement party, where they left me out of the family photo, only realizing it after someone pointed it out. "Oh, we didn't mean to. Come here, sweetie," Amanda had said, waving me in like I was the caterer. Eric always brushed it off. "They're just bad at including people, it's not personal." But it always was. I curled up on the couch and stared at the ceiling. The silence in the house grew heavy, pressing in on me like a storm cloud. My heart kept returning to the SUV. That vehicle was more than just transportation. It was memory, legacy. My dad had taught me to drive in that car. He'd taken me to school in it, to my first college tour, even to my first job interview. After he passed, I couldn't bring myself to sell it, even when Eric said we didn't need a third vehicle. And now it was gone. Just like that. I closed my eyes and tried to imagine what they were doing. Probably blasting music, laughing, tossing snacks between seats, driving past rolling hills and lakeside roads, completely unaware, or worse, completely unbothered by what they'd done. I got up, made tea, then sat at the window watching the shadows crawl across the floor as the sun climbed. I didn't feel like eating, didn't feel like doing anything. Hours passed. Still no call, still no explanation, just silence. And the more time passed, the more a different kind of feeling replaced the sadness. Fury, how dare they? How dare they treat me like an afterthought? Like someone who didn't matter enough to check on? I picked up my phone and scrolled through my camera roll. Found the picture I'd taken that morning. Everyone packed up, smiling. Eric's arms slung around Amanda's shoulder. I wasn't even in it. I had taken the photo, like a spectator in my own life. I stared at it until my eyes burned. Then I opened the group chat again. Still no new messages. I could feel something shifting inside me, an invisible scale tipping. This wasn't just about being left behind. It was about being disrespected, over and over again. And the fact that they'd done it with my SUV? Unforgivable. I thought about calling my mom, but she lived 3 states away and had never liked Eric much. She'd warned me early on. That boy clings too tightly to his family. Watch how they treat you. I didn't want to hear her say, "I told you so." Not yet. Instead, I scrolled through Instagram. Amanda had already posted a story. Lake selfies with her boyfriend, her neon pink nails, holding a beer. No mention of me. No empty seat in the back to suggest I was missed. They were fine, happy even. That stung more than anything. I put my phone down and stared out the window again. The SUV wasn't coming back today. Neither were they. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like waiting. It wasn't just the silence. It wasn't just the way they vanished without warning or apology. It was the way it all felt so familiar. That kind of sting doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from 1,000 little cuts that you've tried to ignore, explain away or bandage with forced smiles and polite nods. I'd been bleeding slowly for years. I remember the first Thanksgiving I spent with Eric's family. We'd only been dating for 6 months. His mom introduced me to everyone as Eric's friend. I laughed it off, assuming it was just a slip. But it kept happening. Over dinner, during dessert. Eric's friend, not girlfriend, not partner, just friend. Later, Eric said she probably didn't want to make things awkward. I believed him. Back then, I always gave them the benefit of the doubt. I remembered our wedding. I wanted it small, intimate. They wanted it big and lavish. I compromised. But then came the seating chart. I'd spent hours arranging it so my family could be together, near the front, included. The day before the wedding, Karen rearranged everything, said she didn't think it made sense the way I had it. My mum was pushed to the back. My cousins were scattered like confetti. I cried in the bathroom for half an hour. Eric told me, "It's just a detail." Let's not ruin the big picture. Every slight had a justification, every insult a spin, every exclusion an excuse. I tried to belong. I really did. I brought thoughtful gifts, sent birthday cards, offered to help with everything, from dishes to holiday prep to watching Amanda's dog while she went on her yoga retreats. But it never felt like enough. They never included me in group chats unless it was logistical. Never invited me to just us outings. I'd find out about brunches after they happened, see photos of family dinners I hadn't even heard about. And the worst part? Eric always minimized it. You're reading into things. They're not good at communication. It's not a big deal, but it was. It built up over time like water behind a dam, quiet, steady, until it was too much to contain. So when I sat there that day, watching the hours tick by with no word, no recognition, I didn't just feel forgotten. I felt dismissed. Something in me hardened. I thought about the SUV again. I'd begged Eric not to let anyone else drive it. I told him how my dad used to polish the dashboard every Saturday, how he'd play Springsteen and drum his fingers on the steering wheel. That car was one of the last things that smelled like him. Even after 2 years, I could still catch a hint of his cologne on the seatbelt. But they'd packed it like it was just a storage bin, tossed snacks in the back, threw beach towels over the seats, used it without thinking. I pictured Amanda dropping her glittery nail polish bottle on the leather, George eating pistachios and letting the shells fall into the cracks. It made my stomach turn. That SUV wasn't just a vehicle, it was my boundary, and they'd driven right over it. For years, I'd kept my mouth shut, bit my tongue until it bled, tried to play the role of the good daughter-in-law, the one who's flexible, forgiving, understanding. But what had that gotten me? A seat at the back of the table, a name left off the group text, a morning spent alone while my husband and his family sped off in my father's car, and suddenly I was done. Really, truly done. I wasn't going to cry anymore. I wasn't going to beg for space in their circle. I was going to take back something they'd stolen from me. Not just a car, but a sense of control. I didn't know exactly how yet, but I felt it bubbling up. A plan. A boundary with teeth. I stood up and walked to the garage. The corner where the SUV used to sit was empty now, but the oil stain on the floor was still there, dark and solid. I took out the box with the vehicle's title and registration. My name was the only one on it. I held the papers in my hand for a long time, letting the weight of them settle into my bones. This was mine, not theirs, not Eric's. Mine. And maybe it was time they remembered that. I went back inside and stared at my reflection in the mirror. No more pleading, no more pretending. They'd made their move. Now it was my turn. By the next morning, the air in the house felt different, still and charged like the moment before a thunderstorm. I didn't wake up feeling sad. I didn't feel like a victim anymore. I felt clear. I got dressed, tied my hair up, and pulled out the file folder with the SUV's title and maintenance records. Everything was there, neatly organized. My dad had been meticulous about these things. He always said, "Keep your papers straight, never let anyone question what's yours." That sentence echoed in my mind as I sat down at the kitchen table with my laptop. I logged onto the local marketplace and started creating the listing. 2009 GMC Yukon, clean title, excellent condition, one owner, full maintenance records, serious buyers only. It felt surreal typing it all out. My fingers hesitated when I reached the part about price, but then I remembered Amanda's smug face, the way she acted like borrowing the SUV was a favor to me. I added a line at the bottom. Not just a vehicle, this one has history. It didn't take long. Within the hour, I had 6 messages. 2 lowballers, 1 tire kicker, and 3 serious offers. The highest came from a guy named Marcus. He messaged, "Saw your ad. Been looking for something just like this for my wife. Cash in hand. Can come today." I replied, "Available. Bring proof of insurance and license. Title ready." He responded with a thumbs up emoji. I sat back, heart pounding, unsure if this was empowerment or madness. But then I thought of Eric, laughing in the car with his family, his phone in airplane mode, probably assuming I'd just get over it like I always did. That's what they all thought, that I'd swallow it, stay quiet, keep my place. Not this time. Marcus arrived that afternoon just as I finished wiping down the dashboard. I'd gone over every inch of the car, vacuumed the seats, polished the windows. Not out of guilt, but out of respect. It was my dad's car. It deserved a proper goodbye. Marcus stepped out of his truck and looked at the Yukon like it was a treasure chest. "Wow," he said. "This is in amazing shape." I nodded. It meant a lot to my family. He didn't ask questions. He didn't try to haggle. He counted out the cash in hundreds, signed the bill of sale, and handed me the envelope. Then he drove away, careful and slow, like the car was sacred. I stood there long after the taillights disappeared, the crisp bills in my hand. I could have cried, but I didn't. Instead, I felt weightless, not because I'd sold something valuable, but because I'd finally chosen myself. Back inside, I put the money in a drawer and sat on the edge of the bed. For years, I'd twisted myself into knots trying to be what they wanted, and when I wasn't that, they made me feel like nothing. But I wasn't nothing. I was a woman who'd loved deeply, compromised often, and held on longer than she should have. Letting go of the SUV wasn't revenge, it was closure. Still, I wondered what would happen when they found out. Would they even believe me at first? Would they try to guilt me into undoing it? Part of me expected Eric to call any minute, to say, "Hey, we're sorry, we made a mistake," to finally take responsibility. But the phone stayed silent. I went to the closet and pulled out my dad's old jacket, the one I wore when I missed him too much to function. I slipped it on, sat cross-legged on the floor, and breathed in the faint, comforting smell of cedar and aftershave. I whispered, "I did it, Dad." I could almost hear him saying, "About time, kiddo." The SUV was gone, but so was the shame. So was the fear. I wasn't just the woman who got left behind, I was the woman who stood up. It wasn't until the next morning that I finally heard from Eric. The message came in at 7:43 a.m. "Hey, are you on your way? Thought you'd be here last night." I stared at the screen, my coffee halfway to my lips. Seriously. I took a breath, let it out slow, then typed, "You left without me, remember?" A moment passed. Then 3 dots appeared. "Babe, we thought you were driving yourself. We didn't realize." Didn't realize. It was so on brand. So perfectly dismissive and vague. My exact words were, "I'm getting my charger. I'll be right back." You nodded. No reply. 10 minutes passed. Then another message. "My phone died." We were already halfway there before I noticed. Right. Because no one else in the car had a working phone, right? Amanda, who posted lake selfies 3 hours ago. Karen, who probably had a charger built into her purse. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. They weren't sorry. They were just caught. At 9:05, my phone rang. "Eric." I let it go to voicemail. Then came another message. "Also, where's the SUV?" There it was. Not "how are you?" Not "we messed up." Not "I'm sorry we made you feel abandoned." Just, "Where's the SUV?" I typed slowly. "I sold it." No emoji. No explanation, just truth. This time he didn't text back. He called again immediately. I picked up just to hear his voice crack. "Wait, what? You sold it?" He sounded out of breath, like I'd knocked the wind out of him. "Yes. That's not just yours to sell. It's in my name. I have the title. You know that. But we were using it." "You didn't even tell me." I held the phone away for a moment just to collect myself. "I didn't tell you because you didn't ask," I said. "You didn't ask where I was. You didn't check on me. You didn't even make sure I was in the car before you drove away." He went silent. "I thought you were meeting us there," he said, his voice lower. "You didn't think. You assumed. And when I didn't show, no one cared. That SUV was mine. It mattered to me. You treated it like luggage." "Come on," he muttered. "This is over the top. We made a mistake." "No," I snapped. "You made a choice, and I made one too." He sighed. "You're acting like they did this on purpose." "Didn't they?" I asked. "Amanda texted me, saying I said I'd come later. That never happened. So who's lying?" He didn't answer. That silence, that was my confirmation. "I just don't get why you'd do something so spiteful," he said. "It wasn't spiteful. It was mine to do. You could have waited, talked to me first, and you could have waited for me. But you didn't." He was quiet again. Then he said, "Mom's freaking out. She says this is some kind of revenge." I let out a soft laugh. "She'd know, wouldn't she? This isn't funny." "No, it's not." He exhaled hard. "So what now?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "But I'm not apologizing. I didn't ask you to. You didn't have to." Then I hung up. I stood there, the phone still warm in my hand, my heart thudding like I'd run up a flight of stairs. My hands weren't shaking. I wasn't crying. I was just done. 10 minutes later, Karen called. I didn't answer. Then Amanda, then George, then Eric again. I silenced the phone and tossed it on the couch. For the first time since this all started, I didn't feel helpless. I didn't feel like the outsider trying to beg for a seat at their table. I felt like someone who finally understood her own worth. They'd chosen to treat me like I was invisible. Now they were scrambling to find what they thought they owned, but I wasn't a thing to be retrieved. And neither was the SUV. It was gone. And so was the version of me who would have rolled over and said, "It's fine," because it wasn't. Eric came back the next evening. He didn't text, didn't call, just walked in like nothing had shattered, like this wasn't all hanging by a thread. I was sitting on the couch with a book I wasn't reading when I heard the key turn in the lock. The moment he stepped in, I saw it in his face. Anger, confusion, disbelief. He dropped his duffel by the door and stared at me. "You really did it?" "Yes," I said without looking up. "You actually sold it." I met his eyes. "I told you I did." He shook his head, laughing without humor. "That SUV wasn't just yours. It was. My name's on the title, you know that." "Yeah, but that doesn't make it right." "What does make it right, Eric? Leaving me behind? Not calling? Pretending it was a misunderstanding?" He took a step forward, hands on his hips. "We made a mistake." "No," I said calmly. "You made a choice." His mouth opened, then closed. "I went inside for 3 minutes," I continued. 3, and you all left. No one waited, no one called, no one cared." He threw his hands up. "I didn't realize you weren't in the car. I swear to God." "Then what does that say about you? That you didn't notice your wife was missing until the next day?" He blinked. "You've been married to me for 6 years," I said. "And you couldn't tell I wasn't there. That's worse than if you had done it on purpose." He looked away, jaw tight. "You could have handled this differently." "And you couldn't? You know what? This is exactly the problem." His voice rose. "You don't talk. You just do things. You go nuclear." I stood up. "No, Eric. I talk all the time. You just don't listen." He opened his mouth to argue, but I cut him off. "For years I've told you how your family makes me feel. Invisible, unwelcome. You always told me I was imagining it, gaslighting me into silence." "I didn't gaslight you," he snapped. "I just didn't want to cause drama." "Exactly," I said. "You didn't want to cause drama. So you let me drown in discomfort, alone, over and over." He took a step back, chest heaving. "I have let so many things slide," I said, my voice steady. "The wedding seating, the holidays, the constant exclusion, the fake smiles. And every time I brought it up, you told me I was overreacting." "Because you were," he shouted. "They don't hate you, you just never tried to understand them." I stared at him for a long moment. "You know what hurts the most?" I said. "Not that they treat me like I don't belong, but that you let them." His shoulders dropped, his voice softening. "I didn't mean to." "I know," I said, "but you did anyway." The silence between us stretched wide. "I don't know how we come back from this," he said finally. "Maybe we don't." He looked at me like I'd slapped him. "I'm not saying I want a divorce," I said, "but I can't keep doing this. I can't keep pretending everything's fine just because you're too scared to stand up to your family. I'm not scared. You are. And it's okay to admit that, but I won't be the collateral damage anymore." He turned away, rubbing his face. "I think you should stay with them for a few days," I said quietly. He looked back at me, pain flashing across his features. "I need space," I said, "to think, to breathe." He didn't argue, just nodded slowly, like he'd finally realized how far we'd come from each other. He grabbed his duffel and walked back to the door, paused. "Is it really gone?" he asked. "The SUV?" "Yes," I said, and honestly, it was never about the car. He left, without another word. And just like that, the house was silent again. But it didn't feel the same. This time the silence didn't feel empty. It felt like mine. The first message came at 8:03 the next morning. It was Amanda. "You're insane." 2 minutes later, "That car wasn't just yours, it was part of the family." Then, "You need serious help." I didn't reply. I didn't even blink. Another message followed, this time from Karen. "I always tried to be patient with you, but this is unforgivable." I read it twice, stunned by the hypocrisy. She had always tried to be patient? I scrolled past the words and silenced the thread. Dan chimed in next, a passive-aggressive message about respecting shared property and thinking of the family. I hadn't spoken more than 10 sentences to Dan in 3 years. Now he had opinions. It didn't stop there. George left a voicemail, his voice tight and measured. "You've embarrassed Eric, you've made a scene. You think you've won something here, but all you've done is destroy trust." I didn't bother listening to the rest. Every message rang with the same theme. I was wrong, I was crazy, I was selfish. Not once did any of them ask what happened. Not once did they acknowledge what they'd done. They just rallied around their version of the story. Me, the irrational woman, the unstable wife, the threat to their peace. By noon, it was online. Amanda posted a photo of the family at the lake, this time captioned, "Family is everything, unless someone sells your memories like trash." The comments were brutal. Her friends chimed in with heart emojis and "so sorry, babe" messages. One even wrote, "People show who they really are when they're jealous." Jealous of what? Of a family that forgot me, a husband who never defended me. I felt my chest tighten, my fingers curl. The urge to scream, to defend myself, to set the record straight was strong, but I didn't. Instead, I wrote one post. Just one. A photo of my dad's keychain, old silver, worn smooth by time. And a caption, "I was left behind without a word. So I left too. Make of that what you will." No hashtags, no tags. Just truth. At first, I wasn't sure anyone would even care. But then the comments started. Private messages, shares. Not from Amanda's circle, but from strangers. People I hadn't spoken to in years, co-workers, friends of friends. One said, "Good for you. I would have done the same." Another, "This happened to me, I stayed, I wish I hadn't." More poured in. "You're brave. You're not crazy. I needed to see this today." I cried reading them, not because I needed validation, but because I finally felt seen, understood, heard. The noise from Eric's side of the world didn't stop, but now it felt distant, like static on a radio station I could turn off at will. For the first time, I realized something. They weren't mad about the SUV. They were mad about the control they lost when I did something without their permission. They couldn't stand that I didn't ask first, didn't beg for approval, didn't follow their script, that I dared to reclaim something, that I dared to be done. Eric hadn't contacted me since he left. I imagined he was caught in the whirlwind, too embarrassed to face me, too angry to admit what had really happened. But it didn't matter anymore. I wasn't waiting for him to understand. I wasn't waiting for any of them. Their messages kept coming, their stories kept twisting, but I stayed still, calm, centered. Because now, for the first time, I didn't need to convince anyone of anything. I knew the truth, and that was enough. I hadn't meant to find the letter. It was tucked inside an old notebook I hadn't opened in years. One of my dad's, the kind he used for jotting down ideas, to-do lists, and sometimes notes to me. I'd gone into the closet that afternoon to look for an old blanket and knocked over a box. The notebook slid out and opened right to the page. His handwriting stopped me cold. "Don't let people reduce you." 5 words, underlined twice. Below that, in smaller script, "They'll make you think your voice is too loud or too soft, too sharp or too slow. Don't let them. Speak anyway." I sat down on the closet floor and read it over and over. My throat ached, my hands shook, but for the first time in days, I felt completely steady. That letter had been waiting for me, as if he knew. I remembered sitting at the kitchen table with him as a kid, when I'd come home from school upset. I'd been left out of a birthday party. My dad had leaned in close and said, "Some people will always make you feel like a spare chair. Just don't forget, you can always build your own table." I'd forgotten that. Or maybe I'd buried it under years of trying to belong at someone else's. That night, I pulled out a fresh notebook and started writing. Not a post, not a rant, just my thoughts, my story, the whole story. Every slight, every dismissal, every apology I never got but gave anyway. It poured out like it had been waiting for space. I wrote for hours, only stopping when the light from the window dimmed into blue. The next morning, I called my cousin Leah. We hadn't talked in a while, not out of distance but out of busy lives. She answered on the second ring. "Hey," she said, surprised. "Everything okay?" And just like that, I started crying. She didn't ask me to explain, she just said, "I'm here." We talked for over an hour. She listened, really listened. And when I was done, she said, "You sound different." "I feel different," I said. Then she asked, "What are you going to do next?" It was a good question. I didn't know exactly. But I knew I couldn't stay in that house surrounded by reminders of everything that had unraveled. So I found a short-term rental a few neighborhoods away. A little studio, simple, quiet, just mine. I packed light, clothes, a few books, the notebook, my dad's keychain. I left a note for Eric. "I'm safe, I need time, please respect that." Then I left the keys on the table and walked out. The new place smelled like fresh paint and dust. It had one window that caught the morning sun and a creaky floorboard near the bed. I loved it instantly. That first night alone, I felt the stillness wrap around me like a blanket. Not empty, not lonely, just still. I sat at the window and whispered, "Thank you, Dad," because he'd raised a woman who forgot her power for a while, but remembered it when it mattered. I didn't block Eric. I didn't cut him off, but I didn't reach out either. I needed to know who I was without the noise, without the guilt, without being someone else's +1 to a life that didn't fit me. In the days that followed, I started therapy, signed up for a journaling workshop, took long walks without looking at my phone, made pancakes for dinner just because I could. I wasn't running. I was remembering that I had value beyond how well I kept the peace, that I had a voice, that I didn't need to sit quietly at a table that never made room for me, and most of all, that it wasn't wrong to walk away from people who made you feel wrong for simply existing. Freedom didn't feel like fireworks or shouting from rooftops. It felt like waking up in silence and not dreading the day. It felt like making my coffee exactly how I liked it, not compromising out of habit. It felt like choosing what music to play without someone sighing in the background. Every morning in that studio, I rediscovered something I hadn't realized I'd lost: myself. I made a routine, not strict, not structured, just comforting. Wake up, stretch, journal, breathe. Some days I sat by the window for hours, doing nothing, thinking everything. Other days I went on long walks, letting my feet wander without agenda. On a Tuesday afternoon, Eric finally called. I didn't answer. He called again the next day, then texted, "Can we talk?" I stared at the message for a while, then typed, "About what?" "Us." I waited a full day before responding. "Only if it's not about defending them." He replied, "It's not." We met at a coffee shop near the studio, neutral ground. He looked thinner, tired. He fidgeted with his cup, eyes scanning my face like he didn't quite recognize it. "You seem different," he said. "I am." We sat in silence for a moment. Then he said, "I've been thinking about everything, and I get it now." "Get what?" "How alone you must have felt all this time." His voice cracked a little, and for a brief second, I saw the man I'd married. Kind, well-meaning, a little lost. But then he said, "I just wish you'd told me sooner." I shook my head gently. "I did, Eric. You just didn't listen. You heard the words, but you never took them seriously. I kept making myself smaller, quieter. I let things go because I thought that's what love looked like." He leaned forward, voice low. "I want to fix this." I sighed. "That's not how this works," I said. "You don't fix this with a coffee and good intentions. It's years of damage, years of being ignored, of being treated like an outsider. I never wanted that, but you allowed it." He looked down, jaw tight. "I'm not blaming you for all of it," I said, "but I need you to understand that silence isn't neutrality. It's permission." "I'm in therapy," he said softly. I nodded. "That's good. I want to do better." "I believe you." Another long pause. "Are you coming back?" he asked. "I don't know." He looked stunned. I could see him trying to process that. For the first time, I wasn't automatically falling back into the pattern, the comfort of default forgiveness. I wasn't trying to keep the peace at the cost of my own. I paid for my coffee and stood up. "I need more time," I said. "Maybe a lot of it." He nodded slowly. "Okay." Back in the studio, I sat down and let myself cry. Not because I was hurt, but because I had finally spoken from a place of truth without fear. It was strange. I didn't feel powerful. I felt human, real, grounded. That weekend, I visited the farmer's market, bought flowers just for me, and spent Sunday rearranging the tiny space into something that felt like a home. My home. I even applied for a new position at work, something more creative, less buried under logistics and management. And when I wasn't busy doing, I was busy being, writing in my notebook, watching the clouds, calling friends I'd drifted from. I didn't talk about the SUV anymore. I didn't need to. It was never about the car. It was about agency, about not being erased. Letting go of it, letting go of their reactions, their stories, their rage. It all created room for something else, for clarity. I realized that I didn't want to return to who I'd been before the trip. I wanted to become the woman who didn't ask permission to exist. And day by day I was. Filing for separation was not an easy decision. It felt like admitting defeat, but also like reclaiming my own life. I sat at the kitchen table, paperwork spread out in front of me. The pen felt heavy in my hand, but every signature I wrote was a step toward peace. Eric and I met one last time, face to face. It wasn't explosive or dramatic. It was quiet, honest, necessary. "You've changed," he said softly, almost like an apology. "I've returned to myself," I replied. We talked about what went wrong and what we needed to heal from separately. He admitted his family's hold on him was stronger than he realized. I told him I'd finally learned to love myself more than I feared losing them. There was no bitterness in my voice, no anger in his, just two people trying to understand the past and figure out how to move forward apart. I bought a used hatchback a few days later. Nothing fancy, just reliable. It wasn't my dad's SUV, but it was mine, and that was what mattered most. Driving it felt like freedom. No memories weighing me down, just the open road ahead. One afternoon I visited my dad's grave. I knelt beside the headstone and ran my fingers over the engraving. "I did it, Dad," I whispered. I stood up. I stopped shrinking. I found my voice. The wind rustled through the trees and I felt a calm settle inside me. This was closure. This was new beginnings. The lessons I learned weren't easy. Never let anyone make you feel invisible. Stand up for yourself, even when it feels like you're standing alone. Sometimes the people who say they love you don't show it the way you need. But most importantly, I learned that reclaiming yourself is the bravest act of all. I still think about that SUV sometimes, not with bitterness, but with gratitude. For the moment, it gave me the courage to draw a line. I'm not that forgotten wife anymore. I'm a woman who drives her own road. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. And if you want to hear another jaw-dropping story you won't believe, click the video on your screen now.